Leviticus, often perceived as a book of ancient laws and rituals, is rich with theological significance, particularly when we consider it through the lens of the logical triads. This analysis will focus on the coexistence of divine attributes, the cyclic reinforcement of obedience, and the causal relationships within the divine-human interaction as presented in Leviticus. Leviticus teaches us about the harmonious coexistence of God's attributes, the cyclical reinforcement of obedience, and the cause and effect in divine-human interactions. Each of these aspects forms a part of a broader divine narrative that emphasizes a life lived in accordance with divine will, grounded in an understanding of God's nature and the operational dynamics of His laws. Balance and equilibrium. The coexistence of divine attributes, Triad 1a and 1n. Leviticus extensively discusses the attributes of God, His holiness, justice, and mercy. These attributes interact in a balanced and equilibrated manner, illustrating the complex nature of God's relationship with His people. Holiness and justice. Leviticus 11:44 states, "For I am the Lord your God. Consecrate yourselves therefore and be holy, for I am holy." This directive is not just about ritual purity, but emphasizes that the call to holiness is intrinsically linked to God's own character. God's justice, manifesting through laws, is in balance with His holiness, demanding adherence while providing means for atonement. Justice and mercy. The sacrificial system described in Leviticus, particularly in chapters 4 and 5 regarding sin and guilt offerings, demonstrates God's mercy interlinked with His justice. While sin necessitates punishment, God provides a structured way for atonement, allowing His mercy to restore the sinner back into community and fellowship with Him. Leviticus illustrates the harmonious interplay of God's holiness, justice, and mercy. Each attribute balances the others, ensuring that divine laws are not merely punitive but are also redemptive and sanctifying, aiming to elevate the community to divine standards. Cyclic and feedback obedience and divine will, Triad 2a and 2n. In Leviticus, the obedience to divine commands reinforces morality. This cyclic pattern shows how adherence to divine decrees not only maintains societal order but spiritually nurtures the individuals and the community. Cycle of obedience, Leviticus March 4th, 26 says, "If you walk in my statutes and keep my commandments and perform them, then I will give you rain in its season, the land shall yield its produce, and the trees of the field shall yield their fruit." Here, obedience results in divine blessing, reinforcing the value of following God's commandments. Feedback from disobedience. Conversely, Leviticus 26:14-16 warns, "But if you do not obey me and do not observe all these commandments, and if you despise my statutes, or if your soul abhors my judgments, so that you do not perform all my commandments, but break my covenant, I also will do this to you. I will even appoint terror over you, wasting disease and fever, which shall consume the eyes and cause sorrow of heart." This negative feedback loop illustrates the spiritual and physical repercussions of disobedience. The text shows a cyclic reinforcement where obedience to God's laws results in blessings, and disobedience leads to correction or curses. This cycle helps maintain a righteous path and teaches the importance of consistent faithfulness. Causal and reversion, divine intervention, and human understanding. Triad 3a and 3n. Leviticus not only dictates the laws, but also underscores the cause and effect relationship between divine commands and their fulfillment, which can lead to a profound reversion in human understanding. Causal relationship. The entire structure of Leviticus points to a causal relationship where obedience to God's laws leads to blessings, and disobedience leads to curses. Leviticus 26. This clear cause and effect is pivotal in understanding God's governance and the importance of law in maintaining divine order. Reversion of understanding. When the Israelites witness the immediate consequences of either adherence or disobedience to the laws, there's often a profound shift in understanding or reversion. For instance, the death of Nadab and Abihu in Leviticus 10 for offering strange fire profoundly impacted the community's approach to worship and obedience, underscoring the severity and sanctity of God's commands. Leviticus details the cause and effect relationship inherent in the divine-human interaction. Actions taken in accordance with God's commandments lead to positive outcomes, while deviations result in negative consequences, often reversing human understanding of God's will. Leviticus intricately details the relationship between God, humanity, and the creation, often through indirect commands that reflect broader spiritual truths. The laws regarding clean and unclean animals, as found in Leviticus 11, and the observance of sabbatical years outlined in Leviticus 25 reflect an indirect but profound stewardship of creation mandated by God. These laws are not just for physical health or agricultural benefit, but symbolize deeper spiritual purity and reliance on God. The Day of Atonement, or Yom Kippur, described in Leviticus 16, indirectly teaches about God's holiness and the necessary separation between sin and sanctity. This day reflects the need for purification and reconciliation, emphasizing how human actions such as sin indirectly affect their relationship with the divine, leading to separation from God. The book portrays indirect teachings through laws about purity, offerings, and holy days, reflecting deeper spiritual truths about God's nature and the human role in maintaining sanctity and stewardship over creation. The book of Leviticus shows how faith, obedience, and divine grace are all interconnected, and how avoiding these elements can lead to spiritual disconnection. The commands to keep the lamps burning continually in the tabernacle, as stated in Leviticus 24 verses 1 to 4, symbolize the inclusion of faith, which is belief in God's presence, and action, which is maintaining the lamps. This continuous action is rewarded by the perpetual presence of the divine, representing divine grace. Leviticus 26 warns against ignoring God's statutes and judgments. The avoidance of these divine principles leads to spiritual and societal decay, showing how neglecting any aspect of this triad, faith, action, or grace, results in dire consequences. By inclusively following the divine commands, the community engages with faith, action, and grace. Avoiding any aspect of these interconnected elements results in spiritual and communal decay, highlighting the necessity of comprehensive obedience. The interplay between love, justice, and mercy in Leviticus highlights the harmony required to understand divine law and the dissonance when these elements are misaligned. The offerings and sacrifices detailed throughout Leviticus, such as peace offerings in Leviticus 3 and sin offerings in Leviticus 4, demonstrate a harmonic relationship between divine love, which is God's desire for fellowship, justice, which is the need to address sin, and mercy, which is the provision for atonement. These three elements work together to maintain a holy relationship between God and his people. When the Israelites failed to comply with the divine laws, or when they offered unauthorized fire as Nadab and Abihu did in Leviticus 10, it created a dissonance that led to severe consequences. This lack of harmony between human action and divine expectation highlights the critical balance needed to uphold spiritual integrity. Harmonious interaction between divine love, justice, and mercy is evident in the sacrificial systems and the laws ordained. Where these elements are in harmony, divine presence is assured. Where there is dissonance due to non-compliance or misunderstanding, spiritual and physical repercussions follow. Leviticus serves as a foundational text that synthesizes these triadic relationships into a coherent whole. The divine commands presented are not isolated statutes but are interconnected, each influencing and reinforcing the other. The lessons of Leviticus teach about the depth of God's engagement with his people, encouraging a holistic approach to spirituality that encompasses obedience, understanding, and the constant pursuit of sanctity. Through these triads, Leviticus not only governs the physical and ritual actions of the community, but also fosters a deeper understanding of and engagement with the divine. This comprehensive approach ensures that the followers are not merely adherents of a faith, but active participants in a divinely ordered life, continually reflecting on and refining their relationship with God.